Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. It's the Catalyst Corner. And joining me today, she's a joy. She's a mother. She's a wife. She's got big, beautiful minions. And she's also one of the communication leads for Lockheed Martin. So, ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to my good friend, Lori O'Donnelly.
Hey, Tony. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, I appreciate it. Our conversations are always so colorful, meaningful, and impactful. So
And
it's
fun.
great. Yeah. So for starters, can you give people just a little bit more of a sense of what it is that you do now in your current capacity at Lockheed Martin?
Sure. So I am a communications lead for Lockheed Martin Space. So Lockheed Martin has 4 different business areas, and space is one of them. And when we get to it in a bit, you'll see how I ended up with space. And communications lead doesn't really fit all of what I do. I'm also known as a program communicator for the strategic missile and defense line of business. And I'm also responsible for media for that particular line of business. So I support 6 vice presidents and 1 vice president general manager who's in charge of everyone. The way I like to explain the structure is that the vice president GM would be like your 1-star equivalent, and then his leadership team of VPs are 06s or colonels.
Gotcha. So along those lines, so you gave the military references there.
Right.
So for those that don't know, you've served both not only in the corporate world, but you also have some time with us strange Air Force people as well.
I know.
So give us some of the parallels and things that you've experienced in advising not only leaders working some of the most difficult issues at the highest level of government, but also there in the private sector.
Okay, sure. I will start with making that connection between Lockheed and the Air Force. So when I came out of graduate school, I went and accepted a position for the Palace Acquire program with the Air Force. And that's a management leadership kind of pipeline, if you will, for civilian employees to work for the Air Force. And you get to experience all of the different pillars, and you just meet a ton of great people. And so I started in space, and my entire time at the wings and the headquarters ended up in space. And it's similar but different between working for military, particularly as a civilian, right? You have this, on one side of the spectrum, they will listen to you, but on the other side of the spectrum, you know, they tend to want to listen to maybe the more seasoned PAOs, right? So you can kind of get away with a little more as a civilian, but it definitely is different. They almost want to kind of still have that sanity check from your director or that lieutenant colonel, right? And with Lockheed Martin, you are in charge of advising and counseling that whole leadership team, and it's you. So you are the PAO, and they listen. You know, there might be bigger issues where they're hearing information from, say, you know, leadership above you, but you are their point person, and they trust you, and you are there to absolutely give them the best advice and counsel. And it was a steep learning curve going from the Air Force to Lockheed. The way that they do communications is different.
Yeah. So what's interesting is you mentioned that like the steep learning curve. Is it one of those things where you found just internally, so personally,
Sure.
where the safety net, if you will, where that thing's been kind of pulled away, and so it feels a little bit more like you're on your own, or what?
That is such a great question, Tony. And I'll tell you, one of the first things I did, I messaged like my favorite people, and I was like, I don't know how I got this job. I like, my team is intimidating. They are so sharp, so bright, so good at what they do. I had just enormous imposter syndrome, and I hadn't felt that in a really long time. And that was something I needed to work through, because I knew I was talented. I knew I had been trained really well, not only through Dimphos and the different people that I worked for in my different roles, but I also had just incredible mentors and friends. I mean, I could name you, Nick Mercurio, Vicky Porto, Chris Hoggett, Anne Marie Anicelli. I mean, I had my people, right? Andy Roque, they mentored me, and they really, they gave me an amazing foundation. So yes, there was a steep learning curve. And then it took about a year. It took about a year until I was like, okay, I am comfortable. I know what I'm doing. It's a whole new set of acronyms. And the craziest thing was, I came from 3 space jobs, and I went to space. They hired me because I had so much space background. And I called Chris Hoggett, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like I've never worked space a day in my life. It was crazy. I was just like, what is going on?
Like, it sounds like English, but I don't understand the words you're saying. I don't know what's
Man,
happening.
I mean, yeah, whole new language, whole new set of acronyms. I picked up on a few, but a whole new everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, so you're kind of alluding to the transition. Tell us a little bit about what it was like with your family and relocation, and going from more of, hey, look, here are the things that happen in working with the military, work with military culture, and then making that transition and moving the complete opposite coast.
I know.
As well. Talk a little bit about that part.
Honestly, I thought I had my whole career mapped out. I mean, I would talk with my boy Josh Aycock, and I had my dream sheet on like the different. I knew I wanted to like go to Air War College. I wanted to take one of the the special positions that you compete for. I wanted to go to Germany. I wanted to work with Sherry at SAF and Mark Cormier. I had it all laid out. And I thought that I would just keep moving up the ranks until we ended up, in DC at SAF at the Pentagon, because I wanted to work the press desks so badly. And so I started at the 21st Space Wing at Peterson Air Force Base. And then I moved to Air Force Space Command, also at Peterson Air Force Base. And then from there, they asked me to go run media down at the 45th Space Wing and run media for both Patrick Air Force Base and the Cape. And that was a blast. I loved it. I mean, I made so many friends there and so many connections. But then when I took that assignment, my husband's job, he had already moved with me to Colorado from California. And we knew it would be a good career move for me to have that media chief, running 2 different bases. And so we agreed. I talked to several military families who had geolocated before to get some support and understand and just kind of know like what kind of sacrifice that we're going to make. Because like you mentioned in the beginning, we have kids. And so my husband and I agreed that we could kind of tough it out for about 1.5 years. And he took our oldest son and I took my youngest daughter, and we geolocated separately. So during my time in Florida, he ended up being his old company here in Northern California called him and said, well, why are you still in Colorado? If your wife's in Florida, come back to work. And he really wanted to get home, and really there was no reason for him to stay in Colorado. So he left. He sold our house and moved. And so I would say probably honestly at the 6-month mark, and people who have done this get it, it was hard. I have the biggest, I just, it is so hard. It is so, so hard geolocating from your family. I have the utmost respect for families that do it, especially when they deploy. And we just couldn't do it. We were struggling, even with the like FaceTime. So I started looking for work, and I tried. I called everybody. I reached out to every single person I knew to try and get a slot at Travis, because that's where my husband works, near there, not for military. Nothing was there. The slot's a captain slot, not a civilian slot. I tried Beale, that's also a captain slot. So I started applying for everything, and I went through so many rejection emails, calls. Like nobody wanted, no, they looked at me, and I had like one person say, your resume and your experience is really, really impressive, but we don't know what to do with space. Right? And I kept saying, I was like, but I know communication, I know public affairs. And then this job opened up at Lockheed down in Silicon Valley, and I just knew. I was like, that's my job. That's my job. And so I moved back, and we recently just moved, and the family's together. It's wonderful. So, and that's how we're here.
Congratulations on the new house, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and so moving forward, what's most interesting to me, I should say, is that you've had no shortage of pressure-packed situations, not only on the government side, but also in dealing with the different types of stresses that life will bring, especially when your family is located in different places. And so for those who are trying to work through these same types of, conditions, whether they are willful or unintentional, what kind of advice would you give to those families, the caregivers, the guardians during these times?
I reached out and asked for help. Honestly, I just had to be vulnerable and let people know I was struggling. I reached out to my friend network. I talked to people. I hung around people. It was a tough decision. And I'll say the way that I kept going was eye on the prize, right? I was like, at the end of this, our family is going to be together. I'm sure I'll find a job. And there was a point where I was not finding much. And I thought, well, maybe I just move and then, find something. But then it ended up working out, and they ended up paying for me to relocate, which was really helpful. But keeping your eye on the prize and then just asking for help.
All right. Hey, so last question. I'll get you out of here on this. As always, I have a curveball for my people. So it wouldn't be me if I didn't.
I will say this is really funny, because it's really, so you didn't give me any questions ahead of time. And like I mentioned, I run media for my different SMEs within my line of business. So, I'm used to being on the other side and prepping, and it's definitely a taste of my own medicine, right?
Yeah. Look, it's like, hey, I prepared all of these thoughts and all that stuff, and there's no telling which direction he's likely to go right now.
Right.
Hey, look, at least I had the common courtesy to say, I'm going to ask you something that is completely off the wall.
Fair.
Brace yourself for that, even if I didn't say when. You just. All right. So you ready?
Yeah.
All right. My question for you. It is Bizarro World. All right. And in Bizarro World, you can pick only one thing to go and do for the rest of your life. And that will be your thing day in, day out, all of that stuff. What is that one thing going to be?
Eat tacos.
You know what? Sign me up. I am in.
No, I'll be honest with you. It's probably read. I am a voracious reader.
Nice,
it's probably
nice.
to read. Yeah.
I hope, since you mentioned it, book recommendation for you. If you haven't seen it already, so
Okay.
Helio Fred Garcia, his newest book. So he's done like Power Communication, The Agony of a Decision, New York Times bestselling author. His newest one, Words on Fire, is finally about to make it to my inbox, and I am excited. So
Nice.
it's a phenomenal. I've read a couple of the chapters as he shared them on LinkedIn. I think you, especially in the role where you find yourself, will find it good, because it talks about incendiary rhetoric and how it affects the way that we perceive things around us. So
interesting. Yeah, you'll have to share that with me.
We'll do. I'll shoot you a link to it. It is it's a good book recommendation for others as well. So
sounds great.
All right. Hey, well, look, as always appreciate talking to you. It's always fun and lively, and great stuff takes place every time. So I appreciate what you do, appreciate what you've done for our country, and appreciate how you, the way you continue to share with all that you come in contact with. And so wish you nothing but the best, my friend.
Thank you. And I know I've said it multiple times, but congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And with that, we'll see you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.